Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, former mayor of a California beach town and best-selling author Debbie Peterson. And we're also coming to you live and on-demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 26 global audio and video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, Blog Talk Radio, many, many more. In fact, we are very proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of thousands, and also #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Simon Gidney offers to caregivers a game and activity therapy system called A Mind to Care. It's a non-electronic activity system that provides cognitively stimulating activities that's compact, easy to use, easy to carry and store, and it provides an entertaining, engaging, fun, and flexible way to capture and occupy the attention of someone living with Alzheimer's, dementia, stroke, ALS, and other forms of cognitive impairment that dramatically improves quality of life. But before we get started, I want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest. Neil Donald Walsh has written 40 books on contemporary spirituality and its practical application in everyday life, including 9 books in the Conversation with God series. And just a reminder, you can listen to that interview and all our interviews, including this one, on caregiverdave.com or any of the 26 platforms I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Simon, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave show.
Dave, thank you. So I'm privileged to be here.
And I do like to ask my first-time guests, just who is Simon Gidney and why was he placed on this earth?
Who am I? I'm an English guy. I moved here in 2004 with my family for my work. I'm a lawyer by background, but I have not practiced law since I left England. All expertise was in the area of corporate insolvency. And I started doing some work with a company in LA who do corporate turnarounds. That's what brought me to Los Angeles. Through that, I started a company that made electric motors that go into fridges and refrigeration units in supermarkets. Sold that, ran that for 10 years, sold it in 2019. And I needed to do something else. If I was in the house all day, my wife would probably kill me. And I bumped into a gentleman who had developed a system, an activity system for people living with dementia. His father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He was an oil industry executive, but he gave up his job, moved home to help his mother care for his father, and did that for another 20 years and became steeped in this caregiving space, in the challenges that his mother was facing. He designed a system that was flexible, that would allow different games to be played. Unfortunately, he then became ill. He recovered, but it took a lot out of him. And I didn't want it to just, what he developed to just disappear. So I came to an arrangement with him and we redeveloped it, redesigned it and launched it. So we felt that it would be something that would help caregivers and would help people living with dementia. And it's kind of changed my life, Dave, to be honest with you, because before I got involved in this, I'd been in the corporate world all my working life. And so I was a bit cynical, a bit battered, a bit used to the brutality of that. But I found in this caregiving area that literally everybody I've met and talked to over the last 4 years, they're just so nice. It's just a remarkable change. So that's who I am now. As to what I was put on this earth for, who knows? But right. I think we've all got to try and leave the world a little bit better than we found it, haven't we?
I lived in England for 20 years, Simon. And
really? Oh, whereabouts?
Yes. Well, in Glasgow, and I also had a flat in London.
Okay.
And but I haven't lived there for 25 years now. And so I'm not able to identify your accent anymore. I used to be able to tell you things like that. But where are you from?
Well, it's my accent's not that easy to place, to be fair, because I was born in Birmingham, which is right in the middle. But I grew up kind of 20 miles and have that strong a Birmingham accent. Right. No, you're right. I mean, a lot of Americans don't realize that although England, the United Kingdom is so physically small, you do get strong regional variations in accents. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah, Dave, or Simon, I lived in Britain for 20 years, and one of the blessings that Americans received from the British was the whole hospice movement. And when I was living there in the early 80s, Princess Diana was really helped with all of that, and then eventually it moved over here to the States. So I'm just wondering, and I don't know if you have any concept of this, but do you see that Britain is different in terms of how they do caregiving? Are they ahead of us, behind us, doing things differently? Are there things you can glean for us from there?
Well, I think there are a number of differences, and I learned fairly early when I moved to the United States in 2004 that I should stay out of politics. So I've done that, and I continue to do that, and I will continue to do that. But we do have a fundamental difference in the UK, in that there is a national health system which is free to all. So, and I mean, it's a very timely question, because I went back to England a couple of weeks ago. So my father, who is 92, was in hospital. He's out now, and mentally he's fine, but physically he's frail. But there is a lot of support available through the National Health Service. You know, he's got people coming to the house now to help, and so there is a lot of assistance that's readily available. Now, I should have to say that the National Health Service is creaking under the strain. You know, it is struggling. I mean, the downside of that is when he went into hospital, they called an ambulance, and it took 4 hours for the ambulance to arrive. You know,
if he was having a stroke, he'd pass the 3-hour window of brain damage. You know.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem, and I think that's an issue that's really been prevalent post-COVID, and I think they will get to grips with it. But
hope so.
You know, it's so I'm not saying there's a perfect system either way, but certainly you do have access there to care that is available free of charge, you know, through your local doctors. Obviously that's not the situation, you know, here. But I mean, I think the AARP just published a report recently that said that they reckon that unpaid caregivers in the United States basically deliver something like $600 billion worth of care. So the problem is so massive that, you know, finding a solution for it is just there's not a quick switch you can flick, is there?
Yeah, I call it the caregiver tsunami, because at least in this country, you know, all the baby boomers who paid into Social Security, for example, now more people are taking it out than putting it in. Same thing with caregivers. Now they're all getting of that age where they need care. There's a shortage of facilities, shortage of workers, and shortage of the unpaid family caregivers as well. You know, who's going to take care of grandma? You know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And the other problem is that the caregiving, I have so much empathy for caregivers, which I've built up over the last 4 years of talking to them. You know, it's a horrible, horrible disease, dementia, and the different aspects of dementia, because you're losing the person you love, you know, over a gradual period of time. I mean, the journey is different for everybody, but a lot of the time there's no immediate physical health issue other than just looking after them. So I read a very interesting book, I don't know if you've read it, by Patty Davis, called Floating in the Deep End. She's the daughter of Ronald Reagan, and she spoke about her experiences when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Yeah. And when he passed, she formed a caregiving support group called Beyond Alzheimer's. Oh. And it was at UCLA originally, but it was cancelled after a while. And when she spoke to somebody senior as to why it was cancelled, the response was, well, caregiving is the least profitable area of medicine. So,
they should all go on strike and let them see just how valuable we are.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? It's caregivers are the unsung heroes for me,
Yes.
because it's 24/7.
Until it happens to a politician, they don't realize that.
Yeah. No, I'd agree.
What's interesting too is that historically, certainly in America, and I think also in the UK, maybe not quite so much, but we no longer have that tradition of all the generations living together and your children will look after you when you get old. You don't usually have enough children to look after you when you get old anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes it especially difficult, but I think it also makes it all the more admirable, because even though we no longer have that multi-generational extended family tradition in the same way a lot of cultures do, we're still stepping up, which is amazing.
Yes. Yeah. It can bring other tensions as well. I'm sure you're very familiar with this, Debbie, with all of your experience, but, because often it seems to be one person in the family who steps up. And then you get a bit... Yeah, and then you get sometimes some resentment that other people aren't stepping up. But at the end of the day, perhaps some people are better equipped to do that than others,
So now you didn't develop this. Someone else developed it, and you ran with it.
Somebody else developed it. We ran with it, but we had to redesign it.
Tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, because it was originally made out of wood, and it was made. Really? And it looked beautiful, but the problem was the responses we were getting back was, it looks gorgeous, but it's too expensive, it's too heavy.
Yeah, you can't mass produce it.
Well, we could mass produce it, but caregivers couldn't carry it around. It was just too heavy, Yeah. So we kind of
how does this device, if that's a proper name for it, how does it work, and how can caregivers manage their stress because of it?
Okay. If I can answer the second question first. Okay. A lot of caregivers had said to me that obviously it's important for somebody, if you're caring for somebody with dementia, if they're not entertained or engaged, then they're likely to sleep. The problem is, if they sleep a lot during the day, they're going to be wide awake at night when the caregiver is trying to get to sleep. So anything you can do during the day to engage their attention, occupy them, is useful. I mean, one lady said to me, even if I can put something in front of him that will entertain him for 30 minutes, I can put some laundry on, or make a sandwich.
Television doesn't always do it,
No. So really, essentially, we're kind of adding new things around the periphery every day based on feedback from different people. But the basic product that we started with is a folding four-sided whiteboard with a little carrying handle. It's dry erase and it's magnetic. So you can draw on it, wipe it off. You can use it as an easel. You can put it flat. You can stand it up. With it being magnetic, you can also put magnetic photo frames on it or other magnetic accessories. And then to sit with that, we designed some thin magnetic sheets with different, we've got connect the dots, or we have word search puzzles, coloring things. Because the other thing about dementia, of course, is that people are at different stages. Some people can do crossword puzzles. Other people really can't do very much. So these sheets can go on a fridge or they can go on the board. And that's the essence of it. I mean, since then we've just done a caregiving journal designed to help caregivers. I think it strikes me that caregivers, it's a very lonely profession, isn't it? Because
yes, it is.
And so my daughter works with me in the business, and we designed a little caregiving journal that has got little inspirational quotes and tips and things. That there's a 52-week journal. So we're trying to add things all the time, Dave, is what I'm trying to say. Sorry if I've rambled on for too long.
Is there blank spots where they can add to the
Yeah,
journal? Because a lot of times these caregivers end up writing a book out of
yeah,
their journaling.
yeah. No, that's what we've done. And I don't know if you do this or you don't do it or not. Forgive me if I'm overstepping, but I'm very happy. I'm happy to send you five copies if you want to give them
I would
away
love those. You're not
to
overstepping.
caregivers. Yeah. No, I'd do that. I've got all your details. I'll organise that. So, yeah.
One of your questions says, should you ever lie to someone with cognitive challenges?
Yes.
And, that's a good question because I've had a mother with dementia. I've had a mother-in-law with dementia. Now I have an aunt with dementia. And they are delusional. They think either, their husband's still alive or I stole their mother's pearls. And sometimes I felt that it's necessary to say, oh, yeah, little white lies. We're going to see him later because if you sit there and try to argue, oh, no, he died. What do you mean he died? When was, I wasn't at the funeral, and you don't want to go there because that will start raising their blood pressure and stuff. So I think it's okay to lie to someone. What is your opinion?
I agree with you.
Okay.
We wrote a blog post on it recently, and it got quite a lot of attention because some people, and I respect their position. Some people are fairly binary in this, and they say it's never right to lie. But
maybe they've never been a caregiver to a dementia.
Well, yeah, and I think that's right because to your point, if somebody's having a traumatic memory and you say no, that person has passed away, that can cause a lot of upset and trauma, and you may be doing that every day of the week, putting them through that trauma again. Sure. But even little things. I read about a lady who was caring for a father, and he became very agitated and really angry and upset. And she said, why are you upset? And he said, the college haven't sent me my certificate. Well, he didn't go to college, and so obviously there wasn't going to be a certificate. But he was getting so upset about this every day. She made a certificate and put it in a frame, and then said to him, "Oh, Dad, your certificate's arrived," and he was really happy. Now, I can't see how that's wrong,
Yeah.
but it is a bit of a controversial issue, which is, I thought.
I'm sure since you've both had children, you've had this experience. If you have a 2-year-old, you do sometimes we tell them there's a Santa Claus, don't we?
Well, yes, there you are. Exactly.
And we read them fairy tales about fairies and imaginary creatures. So I think that in many ways, for me, certainly, I likened it to looking after a 2-year-old. You had to slow down, you had to be careful, you had to watch out for them, and you couldn't go at a fast pace. But that applies, I think, sometimes to what's happening. And I have a very close friend who's been dealing with a friend with dementia, and they used to get into these dreadful fights because my friend just couldn't understand why her friend wasn't doing what she was supposed to be doing, even though she knew that she was struggling. And then she finally realized that you don't disagree. If she says the sky is red, you say, "Oh, what a lovely color of red it is today."
Yes.
And that just takes all the angst out of it for both.
Yeah.
So I think that I would definitely agree. It's I would call it more facilitating again rather than.
Well, yes. Yeah.
And there's a book out called Moments about dementia that, you should look for the moments and you should cherish the moments. Yeah. Because, like the movie The Notebook, where she had these moments. One minute she was dancing with her husband. Next minute she was saying, "Well, who are you? What are you doing in my room?" All this stuff. And what actually happens, according to this book, is a person doesn't really forget who you are. They're just going back in time. Yeah. And so maybe they're remembering their husband as a 25-year-old, good-looking guy with a good head of hair, skinny. And so they tested this. The husband was knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, it's me, let me in." And she recognized his voice. "Oh, okay." And she opened the door and she saw this fat, bald, aging man. And she says, "Who are you? You're not my husband." because she remembered
Yeah.
him what he
Yeah.
used to look like.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
and
Yeah.
and we'll treat them differently if we just
Mhm.
recall, that
Yeah.
okay, uh, if you can find out, okay, the kids are 12 now when they're really 45,
Yeah.
and then you can say, okay, what is some of the things that happened when our son was a 12-year-old, and
Yeah.
it just helps you navigate
Yeah.
the landscape.
Yeah.
You
The
agree
other,
with
the
that?
other, the absolutely right. I do, and I think that the other thing slightly tied to that that I find really fascinating, but I don't understand how it happens, is the effect that music can have
Yeah,
on people.
positive effect. Yeah,
Hugely. I think, like you just said, it can just take people right back. I'm sure you've all seen the Lady
even today
Gaga
for
and
me, it takes me right back. All of a
yeah,
sudden, I've got memories
Of
that I haven't
course.
thought of
Yeah.
in
yeah,
decades.
yeah. But it seems to be able to cut through the fog
Yeah.
of dementia, doesn't it? There are so many cases where that seems to have happened. Makes you wonder whether sort of research should be spent in that area, right?
Sure,
Rather
sure,
than drugs so much, because it seems to have a remarkable ability to cut
sure.
through the
These
mist.
songs are hidden in the recesses of our mind, and we have a logic side of the brain and the creative side of
Yeah,
the brain, and my wife, who can't talk because her language is affected, but she can sing "Happy Birthday." She knows the word,
yeah, yeah.
and
That's,
go
Wow.
figure.
that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really,
she can't
actually,
write words, but she can draw a picture of what
yeah,
she's trying to say.
yeah.
What kind of feedback are you getting with the games? I mean, are you selling a lot of them? Are people putting reviews on Amazon? I mean, what?
No, Amazon's a whole new. That's a whole new, different podcast.
Uh-huh.
Getting on Amazon. That was a lengthy experience, but
Did you do that or you didn't do that?
we did. It took an enormous. We haven't been on there that long, to be honest. It took us a long time, and
Really?
and but we are on, and I wouldn't say it's been a resounding success yet. It's driven by getting reviews, so that's
Well,
something
it
we.
requires advertising, like
Yeah,
a lot of things on Amazon. I'll see a Facebook ad, little short video, and I'll say, "Oh, wow, I could use
yeah,
that." And they
yeah,
send you to Amazon.
yeah.
So yeah, you've got to do the advertising.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's interesting, we have an Etsy store on Etsy, and
Mm.
we've been doing
That's
some
good too.
yeah, we've been doing well on Etsy, and also we've put some of the puzzles we've put them on as electronic downloads so that people can just print them off. So we're getting good success there, but and
Maybe
then
make some videos of an actual patient, playing the game, and maybe a
well,
before and after. You get very creative.
that's another controversial area which I've kind of stayed away from, because there's a school of thought that if somebody has dementia, they can't consent to appearing in a video, and you
Mhm.
therefore. So
Well, you can always
I
take a picture of the back of their head, and
yes, that's true.
and
That's true. Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
they
I
can
mean,
be anonymous like that.
yeah. I'm just very conscious of not wanting to offend people. That
Sure.
I wanted to be
Or you can
sort
do
of.
like the drug companies do. These are paid actors.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny,
A lot of
when
ways to get around it.
I first started with this, I had sent some information to somebody, I can't remember their name now, who blogs on the subject of Alzheimer's, and I was new to this whole area, and I'd used the phrase suffering from Alzheimer's, and this blogger corrected me very sharply, more sharply than your critique of my bio, Dave. And she said that's not a phrase that you should ever use. You should always speak of people living with the condition. So I'm always conscious
Yes, our language is constantly changing, not
yeah,
always for the better,
but
by the
but
way.
but I wouldn't want to cause offence anyway. But I
Sure.
certainly wouldn't want to cause offence accidentally without even realising it. So,
Yes. Well, everything is about offending someone.
yeah, it
Back
seems
in
to
the
be a
olden
lot.
days, we learned to have a thick skin and
That's true.
give
Yeah,
the other person the benefit of the doubt, and.
yeah.
But boy, it's walking on eggshells with some people, I tell
No,
you.
it really is in this modern world. It seems very difficult.
And let's talk about negativity, because sometimes people, the ones we care for, are very negative. Sometimes the caregivers are negative.
Yeah.
How do you deal with negativity And will your game help that?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot of what I've read about negativity with people living with this condition seems to be that you've got to stay calm,
You got to
and
manage it
you've got to
somehow.
manage it. Yeah. So if you can divert the attention away from whatever's causing the negativity, let's play a game. Let's draw a
Yeah.
picture. Let's look at this. Then that might help. I
Yeah, they
think
call that pivoting, right? Politicians like that word.
Yeah. Well, that's what some people say you should do rather than sort of, a white lie. You
Change the
should pivot.
subject.
But
Yeah.
it's not.
Mhm.
Yeah. My my dad used to call that when I was growing up. If ever he was sort of, on me about something, I'd try and change the subject. He'd accuse me of diversionary stimulus, which I guess is the same as pivoting, but with a different agenda. But
Debbie's a former mayor. I bet she knows something about pivoting.
Well, worse than that, I have a degree in public relations, so I can spin.
So you're absolutely right.
They teach you, yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think our game really is just about attempting to engage, to occupy it, and whether it's putting magnetic photos on the board and writing under, or looking at reminiscence cards and prompting talks about a holiday or what have you. That's what we're about at the end of the day. So we're absolutely not something that can, change a situation instantly, but it's just another tool that we think caregivers might find useful.
Well, now what about caregivers? They have a tendency of burning out, and it's good that we're giving them a game to keep their patient or their loved one occupied. But do you have anything that would help a caregiver, avoid burnout or manage their depression or their negativity?
I think the caregiver journal that we've just put out, I think that's what we designed it for. It's a 52-week journal with prompts for them to fill in and inspirational kind of quotes, tips.
So not only tips, it gives them something to do so that they can.
Yeah, because it's a very lonely
a diversion,
and some things to affirm and to try and look at the positives. Simple things. One of the best ways that if you know somebody who is caring for a family member, one of the best things you can do is just give them a break every now and then, or silly little things like if I'm going to the supermarket and I know someone who's caring for their parent, perhaps call them and say, hey, I'm going to the supermarket. Can I get you anything?
Yeah.
I think the more, we don't need to do much. That sounds wrong. Doing little things to help somebody who's caring for somebody, I think, have a massive effect, just because it reinforces the fact they're not on their own, that there are other people who care for them. Yeah. Because, you're right, caregiver burnout, caregiver stress is a really serious challenge.
Yeah, and even more than that, because even if I remember that people would always tell me, hey, is there anything you need? And I said, no, I got it. For some reason, I did not want to accept any help. Maybe I didn't want to feel obligated to, okay, now I owe them something. Maybe I didn't want them to think that I didn't have this under control. I'm an auto mechanic in the olden days, and I fix things. Yeah. That's my job. And I couldn't fix my wife, and or I thought I could do it myself. And so that's one of the big problems of caregivers. They won't ask for help.
Yeah.
And they think they can do it themselves. And,
the
airlines tell us, well, put your oxygen mask on first.
100%.
Before
sometimes they don't eat properly.
Yeah.
They don't exercise enough. No, it's a very, very serious issue.
Yeah. And then support groups, There used to be a lot of support groups, in-person support groups. Now, a lot of them have been replaced with online support groups, which are, just as good. Because especially during COVID, people didn't want to go out and stuff. Obviously, you're an advocate of support groups if you can find them.
Yeah, very much. You make a very interesting point about online, because obviously everything's gone online now, hasn't it? But
seems like it.
Well, I do remember that a church we used to go to in LA, and there was a lovely old lady there called Joan. And, when it was time to greet everybody, we'd give her a hug.
Yeah.
And she said to me, the hug I get on a Sunday morning, it's the only physical touch I get
Wow.
all week, So,
Which church did you go to in LA?
we were at a church for years in Lawndale on 147th and Hawthorne, yeah. But yeah.
Well, kudos to them.
Yeah.
Now, do you agree that caregivers are heroes? And if
Yes.
so, how can we celebrate them?
Well, I mean, I think a huge amount needs to be done. I mean, if the story that Patty Davis, mentioned 10 years or 20 years ago, however long it was, that, the medical profession here was saying, well, caregiving's the least profitable area, then that's something that's got to be addressed. But that's beyond the wit and imagination of the three of us to fix that. I think that the way we celebrate them is they should be talked about. I think that whatever it is that causes caregivers to react in the way you indicated some do, or, I don't want to ask for help because, we've got to help them get out of that, that they should ask for help. And that perhaps if they're not going to ask for help, we should almost be ringing them up every week, 2 or 3 times a week, saying, hey, do you want to, do you want me to come in and sit in for half an hour while you go? I think we've got to be more proactive, perhaps, in saying, hey, there's like millions. I think there's something like 38 million unpaid caregivers in the United States. 38 million.
Yeah, I think it's closer to 60 million.
Is it really? Yeah. Wow. So most of us are probably going to know somebody. Sorry, Debbie.
Oh no, I'm from all that you're saying, I'm realizing that the things that touch me most, coming from other people, they're the little things. Someone sends you a sweet note, or someone drops a flower off, or someone made some cookies and they had too many, they brought you some too. But it's the little tiny things. It doesn't take a lot of time, effort, or money.
No.
And a lot of times, I suspect that's maybe the same too for the people we care for. It's really the little things that do make a difference to people.
I think so. I think that's right. I think that those little gestures, little gestures that take us a minute, could have a very significant benefit. Just makes people realize they're not on their own, that there are other people who are rooting for them.
Well, Simon, we're coming to the end of the interview. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so, Dave. No, I mean,
well, good. I did my job then.
you absolutely certainly did your job. Yeah.
Well, I do have a question. I'm really curious. So you have these fun games and journals. So where do we find them? How do we find you? How do we find your products?
Our website is amindtocare.com. And so everything's on there. We're also on Etsy. But yeah, mindtocare.com is our website, and we have a blog on there as well, where we write about different aspects of this, and we're always looking for guest bloggers. So am I being a bit too pushy there, Dave and Debbie? But
sure,
I can follow up with you afterwards on that.
Absolutely.
So, everything we do is on there.
I've got a lot that I can share with you.
Oh yeah, Dave would be great.
Yeah,
on my Caregiver Dave website, it's just full of lots of resources. If you want to put that website on your website as a resource,
I will. No, I'll do that. Definitely.
I can't believe how fast the time has gone. You told us how we can get a hold of you. I'm curious. How affordable is the game? Okay,
if you bought the complete kit, that includes the whiteboard, 3 magnetic sheets, a laptop-style bag to carry it in. That sells for $75. Wow. If you just wanted the whiteboard, it's $23.99. So all the different components are different prices. So, but certainly I'll follow up with you afterwards. I would like to send 5 of our journals to you, and if you,
thank you.
Whether I don't know, run a competition or give them away to the first 5 people who ring it, whatever, I don't know.
I'm curious how my wife would react to it. She had stroke. She still cannot talk. She still cannot walk, but she can read, and she can, she likes her Facebook and her iPad. And so I wonder how she'll react to that. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, the Caregiver Journal is designed for the caregiver.
Okay.
But we also
but the
have
games, the
yeah,
things
and we
that
have
we designed for her. Yeah.
online puzzles, and we have
She loves
you know,
puzzles. She used to do a lot of puzzles.
we're
She's
just
actually
doing
done a lot
some.
of puzzles. I'm looking at this big pizza that she did. It was a little tiny puzzle, and she put it together and she varnished it, and I hang it on the wall now.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
And it occurs to me too that one of the most lovely things you could do for a caregiver is, or the person being cared for, is give them your game. What a lovely gift that would be.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to be a caregiver to buy it. Everyone knows a caregiver.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
For a great guest. I learned a lot. And remember that all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on all your favorite platforms. Debbie, how can our listeners reach you to find out more about what you do?
Well, you'll find all my books at Amazon under my Integrity 101 series, or The Happiest Corruption. And you can find out more at mayordebbie.com.
You have great titles for those books. And my number one best-selling book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is spreading wisdom all over the world. It's available on Kindle, Audible, hardcover, softcover, wherever books are sold, and also my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can also schedule your free 30-minute initial coaching call to talk about whatever it is you're struggling with. 30 minutes of wisdom can often resolve a debilitating problem. And don't forget my Caregiver Dave Facebook online community of 34,000 caregivers. Lots of tools, resources, videos, this radio show, and much more. And did you know that if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithms. So a true heartfelt thank you to all my listeners out there and my guests. Thank you so much for tuning in every Wednesday and making us the #1 caregiver radio show on the internet. So until next week, same time, same channel, may God richly bless you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Dave Nasani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver, on sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.